What's going on everyone, Mike here with ultrabookreview.com, and this is my detailed review of the Asus Zenbook UX302LG. It carries on from last year's Zenbook UX32 as a highly sleek and portable ultrabook with Intel Haswell hardware, dedicated graphics and a 13-inch screen. Or in other words, this is one of the very few compact ultrabooks that can actually run games and other graphics demanding applications. You should know that there's also an UX302LA version of this notebook, which lacks the discrete graphics, but is identical otherwise. So if you're after that one, you'll find this clip useful as well. Anyway, we'll start with a look at the industrial design. This laptop is going to leave a strong impression from the moment you'll get it out of the box because it's just stunningly beautiful. We have the navy blue version here, but there's also a white one. Metal is used for the entire case, including the underbelly. The lid, however, no longer sports that brushed aluminum design we've seen on previous Zenbooks, but is instead covered by a sheet of Gorilla Glass. So you don't have to worry about scratches anymore, but you do have to worry about smudges and fingerprints, which are extremely annoying on this blue finishing, but less visible on the white model. Of course, this is not the first laptop with Gorilla Glass on the lid. Regardless, the UX302 does look nice overall, like I said, although I'm more into simpler, less flashy aesthetics. But you might feel otherwise though, so let me know in the comments below if you like the idea of having a glass-covered laptop or not. Anyway, let's move on. The UX302 is not as slim or as light as the other 2013 Zenbook, the UX301. But is close, as it tips the scale at around 1.5 kilos or 3.3 pounds and measures about 20 to 21 mm in its thickest point. Besides that, this is not the sturdiest lad out there, as the lid cover and especially the thin aluminum sheet that wraps around the underbelly tend to flex and squeak when grabbing the laptop, much like with the previous UX32 line. In a brighter light, the Zenbook UX302 does offer a large selection of ports, with 3 USBs, a card reader, HDMI video output and a Thunderbolt connector. Besides this, you do get USB to LAN and Thunderbolt to VGA adapters in the pack. That aside, this new device is very well balanced. You can easily lift the screen with only one hand while the body stays in place, and you'll notice that the lid is actually slightly longer than the body, so there's enough space to easily grab it and pull it up. Once you do, you'll be met by a familiar interior. The inner body and the sides are all cut from a single piece of aluminum with a smooth texture that feels great to touch. It's a bit darker than it was on the previous Zenbooks, and the interior is still very simple, as there are no buttons or cuts to ruin the aesthetics. Not even those pesky Intel and Windows stickers, at least not on this particular unit. There is a small status LED though in the upper right side of the frame. But while the interior looks familiar, the screen's hinge has been redesigned and is now hidden from the user's eye. In fact, there's no longer a large hinge like before, but two smaller ones on each side of the laptop. Even so, the screen stays firmly in place when poking it for various commands. Because yes, there is a touchscreen on this laptop, but more about that in a bit. You'll notice that the screen lifts on two small feet when leaned on the back, and that allows more space underneath, thus more air going to the cooling system. I've seen the same approach on Sony's Vios. I don't have much to complain about it, but I'm not a big fan of it either, because it does not allow the display to lean back completely flat, which is something I for one consider a must on an ideal portable laptop. Even so, the screen does lean back a fair amount. Anyway, speaking about that cooling system, when flipping the laptop upside down you'll see some cuts in the metallic underbelly, from where the air is sucked in and then blown through the mesh in the hinge. Except for that, you do get the speakers back here, carved on the sides, like on the previous Zenbooks. The backplate is kept in place by a dozen screws. With the right tools you can take care of those and access the hardware, which includes the upgradable storage drive and one accessible memory DIMM. However, be aware that two screws are hiding behind the back rubber feet. You just have to pull hard to unglue those in order to get to them. Anyway, I'll tell you more about the hardware in the written review on the side, where you'll also find more detailed pics. Let's get back to that screen now. We have a 13.3-inch IPS panel with 1920 by 1080 pixel resolution, and there's literally nothing you can say wrong about it, except for the light bleeding on the lower edge, somewhat visible on dark static images. That aside, this display is very bright, paints lovely colors and offers excellent viewing angles. And yes, since it's a touchscreen, you do get the layer of protective glass on top, which leads to annoying reflections and glare in strong light, but I guess that's just something you'll have to get used to. An unglare non-touchscreen version would have been nice, but it's not going to be available from what I know right now. The keyboard and trackpad are other aspects you'll enjoy on this Ultrabook, and that's new given what I had to say about the older Zenbooks. The keyboard is a bit shallow and there's not a lot of key travel, but that's just a given on such thin laptops. Except for that though, the keys are sturdy and offer proper feedback, registering commands even when pressed on the sides and corners. There's also an adjustable backlighting system and very little flex. The layout is overall alright, although the arrow keys are small and cramped, while the key on the top right corner is not exactly a key but a power button. It is stiffer than the other regular keys, but I did end up pressing it a few times when reaching for delete, in which case the laptop just goes to sleep without asking you if you really wanted to do that. You know, just in case you press the stupidly positioned key by mistake, and that's utterly annoying. Anyway, the trackpad is surprisingly quite good as well. It's smooth, accurate, and supports all sorts of gestures. It feels nice to touch, and that chamfered edge that separates it from the palm rest is beautiful and practical at the same time. So really, I'm impressed. However, there's one aspect I have to complain about. The forward lip of this laptop is rather sharp and tall, and that's why it's going to cut into your wrist when typing for a longer time, especially if you're keeping the device on the desk or any other flat surfaces. A small detail, but something Asus should have thought of. Anyway, enough about this. Let's get to the goodest part, the performances. Before we do that, let me tell you that I have the top UX302LG configuration here, with the Intel Core i7-4500U processor, 6GB of RAM, Nvidia 730M discrete graphics chip and a 256GB SSD. There are a few other versions available with hybrid storage and slower processors, as you'll see from the written post. Anyway, this model just flies through everyday activities, no matter if you're talking about browsing, editing documents, chatting with friends or listening to music. It can play video content at ease as well, including 4K clips if you want to, and it can deal with games. I will post a different clip that will tell you more about the gaming performances of this laptop, but for now you should know that this is the fastest 13.3-inch Ultrabook I've tested so far. This Nvidia 730M chip is merely a mid-range solution, but it's enough to run smoothly titles like Skyrim, Bioshock Infinite, Crysis 3 or the latest Need for Speed on 30x7 resolution with medium details. You can play most of these titles on native Full HD resolution as well, but you'll have to trim down the details. And if you're not impressed with these results, do not forget that this is a slim laptop that only weighs about 3 pounds. In benchmarks, the UX302 outscores pretty much any other Ultrabooks in its class when it comes to GPU results. While in terms of raw CPU power, there are some other options outperforming it, like the Zenbook UX301 with that faster 28W processor. But we'll talk more about that in a future clip. Anyway, you'll find more about the performances and a bunch more benchmark results in the written review on ultrabookreview.com. And I'll also tell you a few things about the hardware and all the upgrade possibilities there. All in all, this laptop is fast. It can handle the basics plus multimedia games and even intense tasks like photo and video editing, programming and so on. The best part? It does all this while running cool and fairly quiet. There are 2 fans inside this unit and you'll hear them spinning most of the time, although they tend to turn completely off when using the laptop lightly. Still, their metallic buzz is nothing the speakers can't actually cover, which are quite punchy by the way and able to deliver good quality sound as long as you'll tweak the output with the included Audio Wizard app. As for temperatures, nor the hardware inside or the laptop's body get annoyingly hot in any conditions, not even when running games for hours. Yes, the back gets somewhat warm, and so does the area just on top of the keyboard between the exhaust grills, but you're not going to come in contact with these surfaces too often, and even if you do, they are far from hot, so I'm once again impressed. There is however another aspect we should talk about before drawing the line on this laptop, the battery life. There's a 50Wh battery inside this laptop and that's enough to push it for quite a while. With standard use, which includes browsing, editing documents, listening to music and watching clips, with Wi-Fi on and the screen's brightness at about 50%, I got around 6 hours of use on a charge. If dimming the screen even more and using the laptop for the most basic of tasks, like writing this review, the battery will only decrease at a rate of about 10% per hour. On the other hand, when running games, don't expect more than 60 to 80 minutes of playing on a single charge. As a side note, the charger is pretty standard here, with the wall socket integrated within the power brick and a long cable. The small LED within the charging tip is new though, and it turns orange when the laptop is charging and green when it's done. All in all, the Zenbook UX302LG is definitely one of the best Ultrabooks I've encountered so far. There's nothing utterly wrong with it. The looks are just as impressive as ever, the screen is gorgeous, the keyboard and trackpad have been improved and the performances can easily rival with any other slick 13-incher. Even the wireless speed issues noticed on the older Zenbooks have been addressed with the new Intel wireless chip. However, as you might have expected, this Zenbook is not going to be cheap. The tested version sells for around €1,400 over here, which should mean around $1,500 in the US. If you're on a budget, the Base UX302LG version is going to start at around $1,200, and you should head on to the site to find out what you're getting for that kind of money. Anyway, it's time to draw the line on this video. Bottom point, the UX302LG is not the perfect laptop and definitely has some minor quirks. It's also expensive. But if you want the fastest 13.3-inch Ultrabooks, well, you're not going to find anything better than this one right now, nor in the next couple of months. Okay, now that you know my thoughts on this laptop, it's your turn. What do you think about the Zenbook UX302? Is it a good buy or not? Or perhaps there are other options you're considering? Make sure to leave your replies below, and of course, if you have any questions, post those as well and I'll do my best to reply. Also, make sure to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel as well, so you won't miss any of my future updates. For now, I bid you farewell. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you soon.